All right, well, thank you very much for having me today. When I do these kinds of presentations, whether on Zoom or in person, I like to use a PowerPoint because it kind of guides my train of thought. So I'm going to share my screen, but at any time you have any questions, please just interrupt, say, hey, Carla, I've got a question. So, and then hopefully if others join in, they'll pick up what we're doing and also ask questions, or I'll notice other people joining in. I can stop and ask them if they have questions too. And if not, there might be questions at the end, so we can address those as well. So let's see. Oh, okay, so we're in business. Very good, thank you very much. So we're here today to talk about voting. And so my understanding of what was wanted was basically a how-to, right? So that is how I took this approach. So what I want to remind all of you is no matter how you choose to vote, it is important to vote, right? And you're using your voice. And by not voting, you have just effectively cut yourself off from expressing yourself. So I want to remind yourself that's the most important thing. After Tuesday night's debate and later, if you have questions about that, I'm more than willing to address that. I've had students tell me they were so upset by the debate, they're not going to vote. But now they're choosing to not exercise their right to vote. They're not choosing to share their voice. And my response to them is, if you're unhappy with the presidential candidates, that's fine, but there's a whole bunch of other people on that ballot that you should at least vote for, make some decisions about. So that's my thinking, and it's important that you also understand how valuable it is to vote. It's your chance to express yourselves. All right, so let's jump right into some of these details. So in order to qualify to vote, you need to be a United States citizen. You need to be 18 years or older, of course, minimally 18. So you may have found that if you went to the Department of Motor Vehicles, you signed up to get your learner's permit at age 16 or 17, that you were pre-registered to vote, but still you cannot vote until you're 18 years old, sorry. You need to live in the state in which you want to vote. So if you are a New Yorker, you're voting in New York. And if you're not from Broome County, but you have certainly now been here for 30 days, you can vote here. That's all. That's the only qualification to decide to vote locally if you do not want to vote from your home county. So I imagine you've all been here 30 days. It might feel a little longer than that, but I believe you've been here at least 30 days. You can't be in prison or on parole for a felony conviction. I imagine that doesn't apply to any of you. You cannot be found incompetent by a court, nor claim the right to vote elsewhere. In other words, you can't also vote in Pennsylvania, hop the border and try to vote in another county in Pennsylvania. So those are basically voter qualifications. That's it. It doesn't talk at all about your ability, your educational background, nothing else. Basically 18 years old and a US citizen. So now the question becomes, are you registered to vote? If you are not, you still have time, and that was why Christina wanted to get the schedule right away, because today's only October 1st, so you have 8 days effectively to still take care of this. So if you're not registered, or if you're unsure if you're registered, then that's what I'm here for, to see if we can figure that out. So I hear that you are all well aware of TurboVote. And in fact, there is a competition in the Student Village for which RA can get the most students to sign up for TurboVote. And that certainly is an excellent option. In fact, I was involved in that this summer, trying to get that for our school. We were lucky enough to get it for 2 years for free because we're a community college, and SUNY Stony Brook is supporting that. So it's a pretty neat opportunity for community colleges to be a part of TurboVote. So participating in TurboVote says to us, those of us who work to get this here, that it's a great program and that you guys want to use it. So the upside to TurboVote is all you do is dial that number 762-255-8683, and you begin your journey toward figuring out if you're registered to vote or not. And if you're not, it will absolutely help you take care of that. The registration to vote occurs through the DMV website. So the trick is you have to have a license or a state ID or at least a learner's permit to register to vote online through TurboVote. If you do not have any of those things, TurboVote can still help you. Just when you get to that point in the process, you have to select you want to register by paper. You're still doing it through TurboVote, but you need to understand you can't go through the DMV website. You have to select paper. Or I hear, Christina told me that you guys have the paper forms there. Certainly that's probably even easier. But by going through TurboVote, you also receive some other benefits, such as receiving notifications about elections that you will be qualified to participate in, because you'll be providing your address. So they will send you information about the elections that you will be voting on. So it is cool to go through TurboVote, but if you don't feel comfortable doing that, apparently you guys have the registration forms right there. If you don't have access to the registration forms for somewhere, I can also send you the link, or I can send Christina this PowerPoint for her to share, or also post in the YouTube video. And you can just go to the Board of Elections, the Broome County Board of Elections, or any county Board of Elections, and they too have the link to the voter registration form. And they can also tell you whether or not you've registered. By simply putting in your name and address, up will come your registration. So if you have registered to vote, it will tell you. And if you have not, it will also confirm that and then proceed you to the registration form. Questions on that? Because some of the stuff is a little confusing. Okay, I'll assume the silence means no questions.
Sorry, I have something.
Oh,
I put it in the chat. I put it in the chat for everyone, but if you haven't...
I can't see the chat, so somebody will have to read it for me while I'm using the PowerPoint.
Okay, so for everyone in the building, if you haven't seen them already, the forms are available at the front desk, okay? You can just grab it anytime.
And one will be provided with your goodie bag when you come pick up your snacks for coming to the event.
Oh, well, I'm gonna have to step by and get the goodie bag. Just kidding. Another thing, let me explain this about the form, because I don't think I put this anywhere in the PowerPoint. I can't remember if I did or not, so let me just hit it now, and if it's repetitive, fine. When you're filling out the registration form, it's going to ask what political party you want to affiliate with, and that often stumps students. If you don't know, you can choose to be independent. And what that means is you're not aligning with a political party. You're just independent for right now, and that's fine. You can always change that later with the Board of Elections when you have a sense of what political party you do want to align with. The only negative to not choosing a political party is in the state of New York, when it's time to participate in primaries. A voter who does not pick a political party can then not participate in the primaries, which is quite frustrating to some people. Others aren't as upset about that. But in New York, we have what's called closed primaries. So if you register as a Democrat, then you would participate in the Democratic primaries. If you register as a Republican, you would participate in the Republican primaries. If you register as an independent, you've chosen not to align with a political party, therefore you will not participate in the primaries. It's just the way it goes in the state of New York. So Something to think about if you're filling out that form. Also, a tip, and I'm pretty sure I mention it later on, for the employees at the village. For students who are filling out those forms for Broome County, you can pop them in intercampus mail. And that way they don't have to stamp them. And it'll get to the county much faster than if you guys put it through regular postal mail. So for students who are registering here in Broome County, just send it to the Broome County Board of Elections in one of those lovely intercampus envelopes, and they'll get it. So students don't have to stamp it. So that'll save them a little money, and it'll get there a whole lot faster. So for students who want to vote here, do that. Send it right to the county. Okay, other questions or comments?
For the villagers, this will be sent out in the newsletter on Monday. So
Okay.
where to go to early vote, stuff like that.
Oh, you did already? Man, you guys are.
Yeah, we're doing it Monday.
Oh, you're doing it this coming Monday. Okay, all right. So as of today, there's 22 days left to vote early, which is mind-boggling to me that it's gone this quickly, especially in light of COVID when we're all kind of hunkering down and things you don't think would go fast, it's going really fast. So starting October 24th, we can vote early in the state of New York, and the ballot is the same. The nice thing about it, especially if you're a little nervous about voting on election day where it could be quite busy, if you vote early, it's very empty when you vote early. There's hardly anyone there, just the poll workers, maybe a couple of voters coming and going, but very few people. Right now, the early voting sites are the Oakdale Mall, the Broome County Library in Binghamton, which is pretty easy to get to. Just hop the bus and go downtown. It's easy to get to the mall too, really, by bus. Or the George F. Johnson Library in Endicott. If instead you prefer to vote on election day, because for some people that's a tradition they really like to uphold, then election day, of course, is Tuesday, November 3rd. Now, I tried to get a hold of the Board of Elections, but I had no luck. They're really, really busy, but I did call. They were hoping to set up a polling site right across the street from you guys at the Cornell Cooperative Extension. Alexandria, did you hear if that went through yet? I called, but nobody could answer my question.
Yes, I think yesterday, Dr. Brass led Kim confirm. Christina, can you check the date I sent you?
Yes, I'm checking it right now.
Yeah.
It is going to be available on November 3rd.
Okay, so not an early voting site, but it will be there for November 3rd. That's
Yep.
okay. I tried to get that confirmed and I couldn't.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So if students want to vote on November 3rd, you just walk across the street.
Yep. So we're going to post that information, Christina, tonight, right?
I think it was scheduled for tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. And it will also be in our news letter article for Monday. So we will make sure it's all over.
Awesome. That is really amazing. I'm so excited about that. It's about time.
And they also did work on the video. Remember the meeting we have?
Yes.
Now I remember I was like, yeah, you were in that meeting.
Yes, I was.
So I just recorded now. So they did create a video. So we are going to try our best to post it by tomorrow. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, great, great. Okay. So I, of course, believe everyone should prepare to vote. They shouldn't walk in on whatever day they're going to vote and be surprised as to what their ballot looks like. So let me see. Sometimes I have good luck with sharing beyond my PowerPoint, and sometimes I do not. So this is a way to look up your sample ballot. The Broome County Board of Elections also has a lookup for your sample ballot, but it's not ready yet. It's still under construction, but Ballotpedia will do a sample ballot. So let's take a look. Okay. Okay, hopefully you're seeing this.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So you put in address. And I will put in and then you just click view my ballot. And there's only one election to choose, so there's nothing to do there other than to hit the arrow. So it's not going to load the local elections at ballotpedia.org. That's why the Broome County sample lookup is better. But like I said, it's not ready yet. So if we move down here, it will show you what to expect on your ballot. So there's a US House race, and you may have seen the signs, you may have heard. So for New York District 22, because that's where Johnson City resides, and the college does as well. Anthony Brindisi, who won in 2018, is the incumbent. He is the Democrat. He's running for re-election. And Claudia Tenney is the Republican challenger. She had the seat in 2016. He unseated her in 2018, and now she's looking to unseat him in 2020. And then there is an independent candidate and a libertarian candidate. There will be a debate between those candidates on October 22nd, which is also corresponding with the last presidential debate. So you can watch debates all night that night if you want. That one is from 8 to 9, and WSKG is hosting it, along with the League of Women Voters and SUNY Broome Community College. We're all hosting that, but it's virtual, of course. So you can still watch it though, and C-SPAN apparently wants to carry it as well, which is pretty neat that they're picking up our local debate between these candidates from a local public TV station, and C-SPAN will cover it. And then of course the presidential race is there as well. In addition to Trump and Biden, there is a candidate from the Green Party, there is a candidate from the Libertarian Party, and a candidate from the Independence Party. Then the two statewide races, I shouldn't say they're statewide, I'm sorry, they're for the state legislature. They are for our district. Fred Akshar is running again as the incumbent for the state Senate, and District 52 represents Johnson City and does pick up the college as well. And then Donna Lapardo is the incumbent for the Democratic Party, and she is running, she's running unopposed. Akshar does have a libertarian challenger, but not a Democratic challenger. So that's what the ballot will look like. And then depending upon where you're voting from. So if you're voting from the student village, then you will have some local races as well, including Broome County Executive, some Broome County legislators, and then whatever the town of Dickinson might have up for election. And you will see that once the Board of Elections, the Broome County Board of Elections, puts their sample ballot up. It's the same thing. You'll stick in your address, and then you can see what your ballot will look like ahead of time. So I encourage you all to look at a sample ballot before you go to the polls so you know what you're doing. And then, of course, it'll allow you to be calm and vote wisely because you'll have been prepared. All right, so your decision then is, how do I want to vote? Do I want to vote in person? Do I want to vote in mail? You know, that's a question that you have to decide as a voter. So if you choose to vote in person, you absolutely have to wear a mask. You have to socially distance while you're in the voting poll area. And if there should be a line, I've worked the polls now for about 6 years. I have not seen a line yet in the locations I have worked, but you never know. So obviously, if there is a line, you will have to socially distance in the line. You'll have to socially distance at the location. You sanitize your hands upon entering, and of course, when you leave. And we do insist that you wear the mask above your nose. I've witnessed a few interesting ways to wear that mask while voting, but we want you to wear it in a proper manner. To reassure you, poll inspectors, in addition to doing what we normally do, and that would be making sure that you're all set to vote and helping you in any way that you need help, we'll be cleaning the sites throughout the day. That means cleaning the pens. You know, no pen gets used more than once without it being cleaned first. Wiping down the ballot machines, wiping down the tables. That gets done all day long. So you can be assured that the sites will be clean. So if you choose to vote in person, you can be assured that it will be safe. And again, I would encourage you to vote early because you can definitely be assured that it's a very quiet. When you vote early, there's definitely less voters than there are on election day. If, however, you want to vote by mail then you need to do a few steps in New York. Step one is you actually have to apply for the absentee ballot because that's what we call these ballots in New York. But whether it's mail-in ballot, absentee ballot, vote by mail, it's really all the same thing. But New York, we call it an absentee ballot. So if you want to vote absentee, you do not want to show up at a polling location, and that's fine. You need to first apply for the absentee ballot. You need to let the state of New York know, I want to vote absentee. So you need to complete the absentee ballot application. And that is easily accessible at the Board of Elections website. When you fill out the application, you do have to indicate that you're voting absentee because of COVID-19. So the reason that you have to select, it says temporary illness or disability, and that's what you're selecting in order to access the ballot. And then you send the application to your Board of Elections. And then once they receive the application, then the Board of Elections will send you the absentee ballot specific to your residential location. So for example, you're living here on campus in Broome County, but you're from Westchester County, and you would much rather have a Westchester County ballot because you know the local races and you feel like you really want to contribute your vote to those local races and not to Broome County folks who are running. So you need to first go to the Westchester County Board of Elections, complete the application for an absentee ballot. They will send you the Westchester County absentee ballot, and then you have to fill that out. So you can do that. You can still vote right now where you are in Binghamton, but vote for people running in your county. Does that make sense so far? Because this stuff can be mind-boggling. And are there questions? Because I can't see the chat. No? Okay. All right. So that's only step two. Now here's the...
Nothing so far in the chat.
I'm sorry, Alex, what?
There's nothing in the chat yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Once you receive the ballot, and you'll get it in the mail, you want to mark the ballot according to your choice, right? Who you want to vote for. And the most important thing to do is follow the instructions on the ballot, right? That sounds very easy, very clear, but I can tell you from experience that, and personal experience too, that we are not good at reading thoroughly, right? We're so used to doing things quick, that we don't read the directions completely thoroughly. So you need to take the time to read the directions thoroughly first. Then mark the ballot as requested. It could be filling in ovals, like those standardized tests you're used to taking. It could be X's, it could be check marks. It depends upon the state. Just follow the directions as stated. Once you're done marking your ballot, fold it up and put it in the security envelope. So in New York, there's 2 envelopes to deal with, and they have to be done right or your ballot can be invalidated. So you're first going to fold up your ballot. You're going to stick it in the security envelope. And the envelope has a place for your signature. You must sign the envelope. and sign it carefully. No doctor signatures, no fast, like a debit card signature at the store. Sign it properly as you would when you first completed your voter registration. Then seal the security envelope. Then there's another envelope. You're going to put the security envelope in the return envelope and seal that. And on the outside of the envelope, it should have the return address of your Board of Elections on it, because that's where it's going back. And it should have a logo that says official mail, official election mail. It does need to be stamped and returned. Does that make sense? So you're dealing with 2 envelopes. That's really, really important, and you've got to sign it. All right, here's how you return it. Of course, you can put it in the mail, right? That seems to be the most logical way to send back mail, right? Is in the mail. Due to the anticipated rush on the post office, right? All these people sending back their ballots. The post office is asking that you mail it 7 days in advance to November 3rd, which is the due date. I would do it even sooner. As soon as you get your ballot, fill it out, send it back. Do not delay, do not procrastinate, do not let it get buried under your laundry or under your homework or your textbooks. Do it as soon as you receive it and send it back out. If you're nervous about relying on the Postal Service, you shouldn't. They're trustworthy, despite what you may be hearing on, reading on social media or hearing in the news. You can certainly use the Postal Service, but if you're a little concerned, you can do other things with your ballot. You can bring it to the County Board of Elections, which is a bus ride downtown. Or you can bring it to one of the polling sites. So maybe you don't want to go all the way into a polling site, but at the entrance of the polling sites, there'll be a table where you can drop off your absentee ballot. And so you're not really entering the polling site, but you're just going right to the door, dropping off your ballot and going. Or you could certainly drop it by on election day. Does that make sense? All right, we're supposed to have drop boxes too. And a drop box is essentially the same as a mailbox. But what I have not read yet is where will Broome County have its drop box? I think they're going to have it at the Board of Elections, so it's not really particularly helpful to all of you. If you have to go to the Board of Elections, why put it in the drop box? You can just walk upstairs and give it to them. So they're located in the state county office building downtown, right on Hawley Street. It's pretty easy to get to. The buses go there all the time. Or if some of you are lucky enough to have cars, or maybe somebody could take a bunch of them down, that would be fine. As long as they're all sealed, it doesn't matter. It's safe. Or actually, they probably could even be all sent intercampus mail, just like your voter registrations can. Okay, now this is interesting, and probably a lot of people don't know this. Actually, I didn't either until I was a poll worker. Say you've done your absentee ballot and you've sent it in, and then it's election day and you're feeling really excited about voting, and you're like, I really wish I hadn't done that absentee ballot. I want to show up and vote. So you can, actually, you can change your mind. And you can go to your polling place, and for you guys, it's going to be across the street. And you can even let the election inspector know, I've sent an absentee ballot in, but I really want to vote in person. And so we now work, inspectors have iPads that we work with. So we will see that your absentee ballot have been sent in. We can check disregard ballot, absentee ballot, and then give you a real ballot. And you can take that real ballot, mark it up and submit it and put it in the machines. And then your absentee won't count. Because of course, nobody can have 2 ballots count. That would be illegal. So the Board of Elections is really good about being able to keep track of how you vote. So you can change your mind. So even if you submit that absentee ballot and then you have second thoughts and you really would rather just show up and participate in election day, whether it's early voting or on election day, you can. And you just tell the election inspector that you voted by absentee, you want that ballot disregarded, you want to vote in person instead. So we have even accounted for that in the state of New York. Okay, any questions about the how-tos of voting before I talk about voter fraud or mail-in fraud?
No.
It's clear? Clear as mud or clear? Okay. All right, so we've been hearing a lot, unfortunately from the leader of our country mostly, about questioning the validity of mail-in voting. Is it safe? And he's questioning that and saying that it's fraudulent and it's not equitable, it's not safe, that people are voting 2 and 3 times. All of that is incorrect. Mail-in voting is very safe. In fact, the National Council of State Legislatures have said that paper ballots, mail-in ballots, is the gold standard of voting. And they trust it much more than, say, electronic voting, which we're not there yet, but they still prefer the paper ballot. So yes, it's safe. If you want to vote absentee, which is what we call it in New York, you'll be very safe in doing that. You just need to plan ahead because there are dates you need to adhere to. So when we hear somebody talk about absentee ballots or mail-in ballots or vote by mail, that's all the same. The terms are interchangeable. So again, you might hear, I mean, I just have to say, you'll hear the president talk about how some ballots are better than others. They're all the same. Because when he was questioned about his mail-in ballot in Florida, he tried to make the claim that, well, mail-in ballots are better than absentee ballots. They're the same. So you need to be clear about that. So a paper ballot, a mail-in ballot is simply being able to vote at home in the convenience of your home, taking your time to pore over the ballot. You know, if there's a candidate who's running you've never heard of before, you have the luxury of looking up that person online, really thinking about who you want to cast your vote for. And then again, as I shared with you earlier, return that ballot by mail or return it to a physical location, whatever you're more comfortable with. How did the states know the ballots from you? Well, 44 states confirm your voter signature with your, ensuring your identity. So that's why I emphasize, make sure you sign it neatly, clearly. Don't use a Sharpie. Right? Use a ballpoint pen, blue or black, and neatly write your name. The League of Women Voters just won a lawsuit in New York saying that if a signature does not look like the signature on file, they have to call the voter and say it's me, say it's my signature. Carla, your signature doesn't look right. Is this really you? Did you really vote by mail? And I'll say, I absolutely did, but I'm 57 years old now. And when I registered to vote, I was 18. Of course, my signature looks different. So imagine an 80-year-old person voting and how their signature gets more wobbly with age, right? And weak. And I've had people tell me, actually, when they sign in to vote, I can't write as well as I used to. And I always say, that's fine. Because they're right in front of me too, of course, it's a little different. But our signature changes with age. And you'll see that too at some point in your lives. So, so in New York now, if a signature doesn't look quite right by an election inspector at the Board of Elections office, they have to call the voter and confirm that the voter did indeed vote. And if they're really concerned, the voter can go down and prove that they are who they say they are before the ballot is discarded, right? So that's a protection for the voter. 9 states are mailing out voters to all registered mailing out ballots to all registered voters. And I've listed the 9 for you. At first I was gonna leave it at 9, and then I thought somebody might ask me, what are those 9 states? And I knew I wouldn't have them memorized. So there they are. So what that means is, and President Trump's referred to this too, and actually I do have that in the next slide, but he's saying that states are just randomly mailing ballots to everybody, right? Dead people, dogs, non-citizens, aliens, everyone. Well, that's not true. They're mailing ballots to registered voters only. And then, you know, the other states allow registered voters to request a ballot without an excuse. So during this time of COVID, you do not need an excuse to ask for an absentee ballot. And that is New York, because the reality is we don't necessarily want to go to the polls during this period of time, right? We want to stay healthy, and we find that we'd be better served by voting at home. Right, and that's everyone's unique decision to make. So this map shows you which state is doing what. We'll see how well it comes through here. Oh, here we go. Okay, good. No. So it shows you that 21% of Americans, or 44 million voters roughly, will get their ballots mailed to them directly. Then 57% of voters, or 34 states, will receive absentee voting is allowed for everybody. And then 22%, they need some kind of excuse. And so you can see which states are doing which. So dark green means that all the voters in that state that are registered to vote will get the ballot, whether they asked for it or not. 34 states is doing absentee voting, and they're allowing everyone to have that option. And then the yellow state, like us, New York, you need an excuse for absentee voting. But New York has said COVID is an acceptable excuse. So you kind of get an idea of what states are doing what. Oh, I had a point I was going to make. Oh, I know. One of the states that's been getting a lot of coverage lately is Michigan. Again, attention from the president, because Michigan mailed absentee ballot applications to all its voters. Just the application. Do you want to apply for an absentee ballot or don't you? And he didn't like that very much either. Again, as a voter in Michigan, you could choose to go to the polls yourself, or you could fill out the application and say, yes, I want an absentee ballot. And President Trump didn't particularly like that approach. That's what he was talking about. So you may have heard him say some of these things. I'm just trying to shed some light on what he was talking about. But this I found in the New York Times. The New York Times has ample articles on this issue if you want to take a deeper dive into alleged voter fraud. Okay. Go away. So what I thought I would do is just talk a little bit about what appears to be the concern, what's perceived to be the concern, and then some of the quotes that he's been using and how they've been debunked. Because it is confusing people, students in particular, but really lots of people are just absorbing this stuff, whether it's from social media or they only hear part of this through the news. You know, we all have our own filters, and we kind of filter out what we want to hear and what we don't want to hear. So President Trump absolutely is providing false and misleading information, and that's proven through sites like PolitiFact and other sites that do fact checking. CNN did some fact checking after the debate as well, citing that most of what President Trump claimed is just simply not true. So why is he doing this? And I'm speculating. I don't live in President Trump's mind. I can only guess. But one is he wants a result election night, right? He doesn't want to wait for the ballots to be counted. Absentee ballots, because they only need to be postmarked on November 3rd, at least in the state of New York. That means they have until November 10th to actually arrive at the Board of Elections. Well, if you're voting by absentee ballot, don't you want your ballot to be counted? So that's, you know, countrywide. There's going to be those scenarios where we're not going to have a result on November 3rd because states are counting the absentee ballots or the mail-in ballots, and they're not going to start until election day is over. So therefore, there will not be a decisive outcome on November 3rd. The news can't help themselves. They're going to report how things look from the people who went to the polls. They just can't help themselves. You know, they can't go dark on November 3rd. That would be the best thing, honestly, to keep their mouths quiet, but they're not going to be able to do that. So President Trump is also concerned he's going to lose the election because the type of voters that will opt for absentee and mail-in ballots, they will probably be Democrats and people of low socioeconomic standing, meaning they're not going to support the rich white guy for president. And he's worried about that. He doesn't want to lose. So of course, if he creates a lot of frenzy around this kind of voting, he's basically trying to get people not to use that voting and in lieu of their health. So he said the following, and I will tell you, I did absolutely plagiarize this New York Times article, but I put the site in there because I don't know how to rephrase his quotes. So here are his quotes. Mr. Trump has said to anybody in California that is breathing, the ballots were sent to, sorry, I did omit something. Mr. Trump has said, ballots were sent to anybody in California that is breathing. And then your pictures are, let's see, let me mute the people that aren't citizens or people that don't even know what a ballot is. Those automatic ballots will reach 44 million voters, not 80, as he has said. So again, remember, the ballots are being sent, as California is one of those 9 states, to registered voters. So he blows things out of proportion. They're not being sent to people who have died. People do know what a ballot is. So he's just, you know, again, exaggeration. He's also been repeatedly sharing a Facebook post that falsely claims that 500,000 mail-in ballots were found in Virginia and 200,000 in Nevada with dead people's names and pets. And the truth instead was that a nonprofit organization in Virginia sent out 500,000 ballot applications with a wrong address on the return envelopes. So yeah, there was a mistake, but it was ballot applications. So again, the form that you fill out to ask for an absentee ballot. And yes, 1 dead person and 1 pet apparently received these applications. I'm still confused how the pet got it. I understand how a dead person received it. But yeah, I mean, so there are mistakes being made, but not to the extent that the president is portraying those mistakes. And then, of course, he's actually implying that it's fraud, right? But they're mistakes. We're humans. We make mistakes. So this is definitely different. And then President Trump has repeatedly said that a friend in Westchester County, New York, received a ballot for his deceased son. Well, in New York, we're not sending ballots to voters. Ballots have to be requested, right? So that has to be false, because why would a dead son request a ballot? So that story is false. So does election fraud exist? There are very few and far between cases. And as one researcher said, and I love to repeat, you have a much greater chance of being struck by lightning than you do encountering a voter fraud case. The Heritage Foundation has been studying voter fraud cases, and this is a conservative group, lest you think I'm just discrediting our president. So certainly a conservative group might be interested in trying to find voter fraud cases. They found just 1 example of a woman requesting and then casting an absentee ballot for her dog. And that the database also notes that since 1991, there's only been 11 cases where someone filled out an absentee ballot on behalf of a dead person. So sure, there is some fraud, 11 cases and 1 ballot for a dog. But those votes would never sway an election. And this is the article that I'm crediting with all the stuff that I took. I did paraphrase some of it, but a lot of it I honestly did just take from this article, because really it was all factual, and I figured it was easier to just pop it into my slides and talk about it. And that's it. Let's get you all back here. Okay, I don't know what I did here tonight.
Okay, so I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Okay, so what are the best radio stations, newspapers, or news stations to follow to get the facts without the partisan favoritism?
Well, my personal favorite radio station, of course, is National Public Radio. They are objective. They do bring in voices from all perspectives, report on the news. And yeah, there'll be a little opinions inserted here or there, but honestly, that is an excellent source. And you can hear them on 89.3 FM if you have traditional radios, or I have the NPR app and I love it because then I can listen to it whenever I want, and I don't have to worry about, oh no, I missed this show because, you know, the time has passed. As far as newspapers, any of the major newspapers are your best bets, right? So the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all of those are going to be solid choices for getting the news that you want. As far as TV, all the networks have some kind of bias, right? So, I mean, I personally like CNN, but yeah, they lean to the left, right? MSNBC also tilts a little bit to the left. Fox News. If you just watch Fox News, limit yourself to Fox News, you get the right perspective. If you start going off into the shows on Fox News, very biased, and there's a lot of lying going on there. You know, so the Sean Hannity show and Jeanine Pirro and some of those other people on Fox, you want to avoid them. But if you want a conservative perspective, regular Fox News is okay to watch.
Okay. When are the presidential debates and where can we watch them?
Okay. Well, fortunately, they are. I was going to try to make my screen bigger. I don't know what happened here. No. All right, never mind. The presidential debates. So, well, we just saw one maybe on Tuesday night. And the next one is scheduled for October 15th, which is our mid-semester break. So I don't know if you guys are going home or hanging out here. But that will be on Tuesday as well, I believe. And then October 22nd. So the one on the 15th is being conducted as a town hall. And so the hope is that the president will behave himself and not be so rude and interrupt their candidate. And yes, Joe Biden said a few things too and did a little interrupting too. But candidly, Joe Biden maintained his cool pretty well considering he was on the receiving end of that behavior. So we'll see. So a town hall meeting essentially means that the two candidates will be taking in questions from the audience in Miami. There will be a moderator as well. So the format will be different and not lend itself so much to what we saw Tuesday night. And then on October 22nd, it will be once again questions and answers from the candidates. So we shall see if that behavior resurfaces or not. And they're all 9 to 10:30, the time frame. And as far as networks, you can watch them on any of the major networks. ABC, CBS, NBC are all carrying it. CNN, MSNBC, C-SPAN. So it kind of depends on who your favorite commentators are, if you want to have their input before and after the debate is being carried. If you just want to watch the debate, all of those networks are fine, and usually they stream it. So if you're not watching on TV, but you're watching on your computer, their websites stream it as well. And the New York Times had it as well as the Wall Street Journal, they were streaming it too, and the Washington Post. So even most newspapers are also carrying the debate as well.
Next
Other
question. Why are the vice president debates important, and where and when can we watch them?
Okay, they go next Tuesday, or is it Wednesday? October 7th, whichever day that falls on. And they're debating in Salt Lake City, Utah. And again, 9 to 10:30, same networks, the whole thing. They'll get the same coverage. And the why is important because you should know who the vice president is, right? I mean, currently it's Pence, but perhaps it'll be Kamala Harris. And beyond just knowing who they are, what do they stand for? What are their principles, their values? And potentially, although we don't wish this on any president, but they could be the next president if something happens to the current sitting president. So it's really important, you know, who they are as individuals. And also, even if that doesn't happen, they do a lot of work for the president. Gone are the days where vice presidents were known as standby equipment. They just kind of waited around to see if the president was going to kick off and they would have a shot at becoming the next president. Now vice presidents have very active roles in administrations and often are in charge of policy for the president. So it's important to know their stance on policies, right? So the debate should hopefully reveal that. And I'm sure they'll also be loyal soldiers for their respective candidates, but it will be interesting to know what their positions are on some of the issues.
I've never actually watched vice president debates.
Oh yeah, it should be really interesting.
All right. Next is going off what you said earlier about the election day results. When's the earliest we can get an accurate answer of who won? If we can't get the night of.
I think it's going to be a little while. You know, like I said, I think the media is going to be still trying to report the results as they come in from the states through election machines and things, right? Because there'll be still plenty of people showing up with their paper ballots, and we'll still be able to submit tentative results from the states. But nobody should be calling that election that night because of all the mail-in voting and ballots that will need to be counted. So I didn't have a chance. That's the one thing I wanted to do and didn't have time, was to check when other states were going to start counting their ballots, but New York's not going to start till November 10th. So we may not know for a good week after, you know, election day at least. And that's another thing that's making the president very nervous. And one of the reasons why he's pushing to get that Supreme Court position filled, because if for some reason the Supreme Court has to decide the election, like happened in 2000 with Gore and Bush, he wants another justice in his corner. So that's the other reason why we see that rushing to fill that vacancy. So I think we all have to be patient. As Joe Biden said he was willing to do, the president did not answer that question in the same way.
All right. And then my last question that I wanted to end on is, many young first-time voters watch their first debate on Tuesday night in efforts to be a responsible citizen and get educated. We all know how that went. So as an educator, is there anything you would like to say to those people?
I'm sorry. No, I could say more than that, but I felt really badly because, as you know, I assigned that debate to all 5 of my classes to watch. And I was horrified what I saw. I really was. It was not the debates of old, right? Voters didn't learn a thing. Not really. I mean, I think Joe Biden tried to get out some of his policy positions, but they were hard to hear. So a debate is all about sharing views, right? Comparing views, talking about different positions, how one would do something over the other. And instead it was a shouting match. And it was, as many are saying, a train wreck. Jake Tapper said a train wreck and a dumpster thing or whatever. It was terrible, right? And most voters walked away pretty dissatisfied. And that's a very poor representation of what our democracy should look like. And if we're trying to heal the country, that sure didn't happen Tuesday night. So I don't have any advice other than to keep your chin up and know that other people don't behave that way and other officials don't behave that way. And I hope that we'll see a better debate between the two of them again on the, well, it won't be a debate, it'll be a town hall, but I hope that'll be more respectful. On the 15th, I know that the vice presidential candidates will do a better job. I know that Kamala Harris can be very assertive, but she's respectful. In other words, you know, Pence can't walk over her, right? She's going to give it to him if he pushes her, as she should. But I don't know that Pence will behave inappropriately. He's generally a pretty respectful person, but he also does march to the beat of the president. So it'll be interesting to see how Pence does behave. Does he do what he's been asked by the president, or does he do what he thinks is right? So I'm hoping we'll see a more respectful debate on, you know, between the two vice presidential candidates so that you can see how a real debate should happen. But it was really discouraging.
Yeah. I turned it off halfway. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But that's questions. Does anybody else have any? If not, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for presenting. If you are a resident, you could come down to the front desk, get your goodie bag of snacks. But other than that, this video is on the social medias. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Professor Michalak, for joining us. Christina, wonderful questions, really great questions. Thank you.